Okay, for today's painting, we are going to go through quite a bit of footage. This was a long one. I am probably about 30 hours plus into this project before it's done. Hard to say. It was worked on and off for a couple months just because I wanted it to be just right. I was trying out some new things, trying out some different ways for the color to move around the painting. It's a little bit more surrealistic, or a little bit more on the surrealism side than usual. I have this little bit of color that goes around the figure at the base. You'll see towards the end this almost like a stream of blue comes around and sort of searches out the subject and then works its way up the subject to the head. Now, depending on how you look at it, you could see it as the reverse. You could see it as it's starting at the head and the blue's kind of working its way down and then flowing around her at the bottom. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on what direction you think the blue is kind of traveling. I'm trying for an upward motion, almost like it's defying gravity in a way. I don't want it to feel too much like liquid, but I guess when it's blue and you kind of have this flow going around it, it just kind of naturally starts to feel like water. But I'm just going for a color that sort of acts like a virus, searching out the subject, attaching itself, altering the thoughts of the subject, all these kinds of interesting thoughts. It's just a lot about identity and how we're always changing and evolving over time. We're evolving because of outside influences. We're evolving because of how we see the world. That's just kind of what my work's about. So that is in general what I'm going for. Now, the first part of this video, you get to see the full process. You get to see my shape-based drawing method, where I do the big shapes first. I start with the background, and then I start with the general shapes of the figure, and then just fine-tune as I go. Because there's so much going on with this subject, though, it does take a little bit of time to get everything massaged into place. Once I do, that's when I start focusing in on certain parts of the body, like the head. I start getting all the details I want for the head, then I jump to the hands, and then I jump to the color. And once the color's in, it takes a little while for me to get the colors to settle in where I want them. I'm just a little bit too saturated for a while towards the bottom. And then at the end, you'll see that I desaturate I guess you can call it the river of color going around her. I desaturate it to be a little bit more subtle so that the blue in the middle that's going over her body just feels a little bit more intense. So that's where a lot of the play was, getting the right texture, getting the right composition, the background, getting that horizon line on the background just right. So many little things that just really took a little bit longer than I was hoping, but it's one of those pieces I'm really happy with. I hope you like it. Let me know what you think of this one in the comments. If you do want to see more about how I paint, how I go about my painting process, I have a bunch of exercises and tutorials and demonstrations over on my Patreon account, where you can watch me talk through the whole process. I explain my methods, I explain the paints I use, the mediums I use. This painting, for example, I would say could be done, at least the first part of it, a lot of it could be done with just the Zorn palette, where it's ivory black, cadmium red, yellow ochre, and titanium white. I think having a little bit of alizarin on your palette will help. Alizarin claret, alizarin crimson, whatever you got. And then some ultramarine blue obviously will be helpful. I do use some phthalo blue quite a bit, but besides that, I don't really think a lot of other colors would have been that necessary. I'm sure I did use some other yellows just to play around, but I think yellow ochre, because there's nothing that's very strong yellow in this painting, I could have got by with just the yellow ochre and been fine. But I like to have a lot of colors on my palette just to have them in case I need them. But that's about it. That's about the whole process. I did decide to call this one Searching, just because it feels like that path of blue that wraps around her is sort of searching for her. And you could also look at it in a different way, where she's searching for something. She's searching for an answer. She's searching for herself. She's searching for that next thing in her life. It could be all kinds of ways to look at that title, Searching. So I'm actually kind of happy that the title just kind of popped in my head about a week ago when I was finishing it. I wasn't even thinking about titles. It just popped in, and I'm really happy with it. So feel free to check it out. Most of the process is here towards the end, because I was doing so much and I had so much footage. I don't even know how much footage I have, honestly. It's probably a half a terabyte worth of video footage that is just filling up my hard drive space. So I did compact it down to about 10 minutes so you can get the gist of what's happening. At the end, you can see a kind of a full pan across the painting so you can get a better idea of what's going on as well. So I have some music in the background for you to kind of chill to while you watch this. Let me know if you have any questions. I'd love to hear your comments, your thoughts. Please subscribe, like, comment. All those things are appreciated. Now I'm going to go ahead, let you watch the rest of the process for this painting I decided to call Searching.